previously on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
That's why I love to draw, and I wanna create Supa-Saturdays, Supa-Saturdays, Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along welcomes you to Jungle June. That's right, join Jerome Hinds here on the Madness Entertainment Group for a month of tutorials on how to draw some of the best-known heroes from the land of rainforest. Black Panther, Shana the She-Devil, Khazar, and Zabu. And of course, the king of the jungle, Tarzan. That's Jungle June with Jerome Hinds on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome once again to Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along with me, Jerome Hinds. And first of all, a big apology is owed, because last week I overslept. Yes, I'm not going to make excuses. I'm just going to give a reason, no matter how bad the reason is. Where you are, if you're in the Eastern Time US, I mean, this show is kind of geared to a US audience. It's 6 p.m., a very civil hour. But where I am, I'm in Singapore. It's 6 a.m. And yes, I was guilty. I am indeed a Brit. And I was watching the World Cup. And things got out of hand. And waking up at 5 a.m. last Sunday morning, I failed miserably. I set my alarm clock incorrectly, which is no excuse. But I'm here now. And we're going to draw Black Panther's head. So like we did last month when we were doing, what was it? It was Mainstream May. And we had lots of popular animation characters. And we used a grid. Remember, we used a grid of 8 squares. So I want to do the same thing here today. So if you've got your pencils at the ready or your stylus, we're going to draw 2 large squares and then divide them up. So if you've got a piece of paper, first thing I want you to do is, let's draw this on the left. We might have space for another drawing later, right? What I want is a square, but let's call it a broad square. I mean, technically it's a rectangle, but it's almost a square. So there, so it's a little bit broader than it is tall. Now remember, drawing is all about averaging. Distances, dimensions, proportions. So you can see what I'm doing here. This is my first square. And of course, I could just use a square tool. I'm drawing digitally. I'm drawing with Clip Studio Paint. And of course, if you're drawing digitally with Procreate, no matter what software you're using, Photoshop, you can just draw a rectangle automatically. But I want us to practice drawing. So I want us to practice drawing these squares and getting them as accurate as we possibly can, freehand and by eye. So this is looking pretty much there. Now I can see that my top square is bigger than my bottom square. I need to extend this down a little bit more. As I said, we're averaging. That's all drawing is. How well you can gauge distances. Get rid of that. Good. And what I want you to now do is that equal. I'm going to move this line up very slightly. Okay. Where's that? Remember, what's it I always say here on this show, especially when sketching? My trademark saying, keep those pencils light. Indeed, keep those pencils light. Now, I was so eager to apologize for my mishap last week. I haven't set my backing music. Let me get it the right level. Level 10, I think it's quite comfortable. Is that a bit too loud? I'm guilty of having my music too loud sometimes. Dropped it down to another 8. Okay. So now what I need you to do is divide your 2 squares, call them slightly fat squares, in half. Bring that line all the way down. Good. And then in half again. If you're designing a range of characters for a concept, this is very useful, because this can show anyone who's trying to learn your Bible, the guide to your characters. Once they have something like this, it's very easy to really get a grasp of the dimensions of the character, which helps any other artist coming on board that has to follow a house style. That's why I like this approach. So we've got that, and very lightly, I'm going to divide each of these squares in half again. There. There. That's too high, isn't it? That is not halfway. Often I find a halfway in the center line. I'm a big fan of finding center lines. I'll talk a lot about that in the book, in the upcoming book I have coming out. That's going to be available on Amazon. The importance of finding the center of an object. Keep those pencils light. Indeed. Divide this set of fat squares over here, and the final set at the bottom. Now, if you're working digitally, I suggest you work in layers, which of course means that you don't really have to worry too much about keeping your pencil light. But I always try to prepare people for drawing live. Say, for example, at a Comic Con, that's where the real acid test is. So always practice good traditional techniques. So now I'm going to start with the circumference. Okay, I'm not going to tell you who we're drawing. I'm going to let you guess as we go along. So the first thing I want to do is get the shape of the face. So let's get the side of the face. The side of the face, exactly halfway. See there? And I do something that's called drawing in stereo. I would do one thing one side and do something the other side. And Black Panther doesn't have a square draw line, like say, for example, Superman. Oh no, I just said who I'm drawing. What an epic fail, eh? God damn. It's too early, ladies and gentlemen, it's too early. Now gauge that distance there. Can you see that distance that I'm depicting there? I need his jaw to come through that juncture. So these are called markers. Now that we've got a marker, we know what we're aiming for. It's going to come down to that, and that's going to touch down to there. So what you can do is you touch one side, you touch the other, and eventually you can join them up. And keep it slightly rounded. Same the other side, touch, touch, then join them up. And same here, touch, touch, and then join up. Look at that. I set up a nice mystery who will be drawing, and then I said his name. What a doofus. What a doofus. Good. Now we come at the sides of the head. We normally want the top of the head to meet the top of this square, right? So let's put a marker here for the top of the head. And the top of the head is broader than the chin. So what I want you to do is exactly at the bottom of the top set of squares, give me a slight marker just inside the periphery there. Just inside. Because we need this to connect to the sides of the head. Now that's giving us a nice feeling of the width of the head. And about here, coming a small distance about there, we need this to carry through here. Now we have to get a smooth turn from there to here. Build that up gradually. Yeah, that gives the top of the head. We come around the other side. Go out, come in gradually. That gives us the circumference of Black Panther's head. Sorry, let me just, whoops. I'm doing a time lapse, so sometimes it takes a while to save. You saw that, right? Good. Now, his classic ears come down to about halfway down this rectangle in this bottom quadrant of this square. And then just a little ways above this marker here, and poking just outside of the square, about there, comes his ear. So average that distance nicely. Come the other side. Remember, we're striving for symmetry, which is always a bit of a chore. Not easy. There. And we got the top marker here. We just go beyond the periphery of the square. Let's join this up. There we go. You can see that the right side of my head is slightly slimmer than the right side, judging by the shape of that ear. Yes, that's because I had this coming in more sharply on the other side. So I'm just going to adjust this. Yeah, that's a bit better now. And if we kept our pencils light, we just erase there and there. Good. So we've got the basic shape of our panther's head. Whoops, let me bring that in just a little bit more. There we go. Black Panther. I can see I've got a few of you watching out there. Thank you so much for joining me here on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. My name is Jerome Hinds. And this is Jungle June. We're drawing characters from the rainforest, you could say. Now, interesting with Black Panther, he apparently has quite small ears. So we got our grid. Yeah? So the second main square, give me a marker on the side of the head there. Come on the other side, here. And then just below the halfway marker here. And give me a slight mound on the side of his head. And this is the bulge in the mask of what we get for the ears. And I've done headshots. If you've been here before, I've done headshots before. And today I want to include a neckline. So exactly at this junction here of the bottom square, give me a marker. As I said, Black Panther is not as powerful as Superman or someone of that nature. So his neck isn't quite as thick as that kind of character. So now bring us a straight line down to the bottom rectangle here, but slightly inclined. Yeah, and then from there, give me a gentle curve all the way around. And I like this exercise because we're going to get into a few techniques that does help with sketching quite a lot. And we're just about to approach one of those as we draw on Black Panther's necklace. So let's put his lats in. He's a superhero, so he's going to have some decent lats. So we just go beyond the grid. Okay, so there we've got his basic neck area. And he has a necklace. And it's interesting. It's basically animal teeth. Now we need to keep these quite constant. So what I do is I give myself little markers. So he's got about, in view, we can see about 11 of these teeth. So if we put a center one, there's going to be 5 either side. So what I like to do is find the halfway mark between here and the neck. And because of foreshortening, because of the depth, go just past the halfway mark and give me a slight curve about the same length as the first one. It's about there. And about here, give me a slight curve coming down. Now average 3 equal spaces between there, and like the hands on the clock, fan them out equally between here. And try to keep them approximately the same length. Now up here, because of depth of field, give me 2 that are slightly less in distance and spray those out accordingly. Trying to keep approximately the same length. There, and then here. Good. Now what we need to do is flesh those out. So give me a curve on the top here, and then bring in the shape. So what we basically did was created a skeleton for the tooth. Now look at the shape of the tooth. As it goes around, the shape is going to slightly change because of the volume of the tooth and the fundamental form. So put one there, put another one here. Let me curve that one. Now drawing digitally, you can of course duplicate these teeth to save yourself a lot of time. But this is Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. And we're here to not take too many shortcuts. We're here to explore methodologies and actually put the work in. Put the work in, as they say. There. Make sure you zoom in that so you guys can see what I'm doing. Thank you so much for tuning in. I can see I've got a few of you out there watching. Feel free to ask any questions you may have as we draw Black Panther's necklace. Now this one's a little bit close, so I'm going to take creative license and sketch it just a little bit high on my skeleton. And here, and you notice as it goes around the upper body, then the shape of the teeth is slightly different, you know, because it has got a basic fundamental shape to it. That as we change angle on it, the fundamental shape of it slightly changes. And finally, this one, very high up, going almost behind the neck at this point. It's just right on the periphery. And the same over here. And there, okay, there's Black Panther's necklace. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to now put in a slight double line behind to make it look as if our teeth are attached to a necklace or a line of some kind. And that goes behind the neck. Jolly good. So now let's move up. Let's start working on the face, shall we? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the eyes in. And Black Panther has quite an elaborate pattern on his mouth. So the first thing I want to do is locate the eye. Remember, we had one set of squares here, another set here, another set there, and another set here. So what I want you to do is locate the second set, this area here. And in here, coming to the bottom quarter and gauge roughly this distance from the center line. Give yourself a marker there. And I'm going to go the other side and put a marker here as well. So it's nearer. It's getting closer to the exact halfway mark of the entire drawing. I'm going to move mine down just a little bit. Just move it down slightly from there. Good. And think of this distance here. If that's halfway, we need to go halfway between this and the edge of the head. So we need to go about the same distance as this from the center line here, from the side of the head. And this is going to be just above the halfway mark of between here and here. So can you see in this quarter here, we're about the same distance is from the center line. I'll move that in slightly. And just above the halfway mark between this rectangle. Give ourselves a marker there. We come the other side and do the same thing. Good. And then from here, give yourself a very gentle arc that goes up and over. I think this marker is probably a little bit far. Shorten that slightly. And then I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Gentle curve. Now the underside has a slightly different trajectory. It comes downwards. And the bottom curve is more kind of just more perfectly horizontal. Doesn't have much of a slope in it. Then the outer curve comes down to meet it. Again here, I'm going to give myself a curve that's more 90 degrees, like a cradle. Then I'm going to bring that outer vertical in to meet that curve. Good, so we're gauging those eyes. So now, from here, let's gauge everything against the eyes. Now, first of all, almost as high as the eyes, but just below, there's a pattern that goes over the nose that's very symbolic of Black Panther. And just under here, give me two slopes like that from within the eyes. And then give me an arc that comes up and meets between the eyes. Comes up and over, and the same on the inside. There. Same here, same on the other side. This is a great exercise in symmetry, what we're doing here. Now let's look below the eyes. Come below the slope of the eyes. And something cradling the eyes underneath is another pattern. Come down to the halfway mark and bring that one just below. You can see the thickness of the pattern in relativity to all the drawing. Give me another slope here. Comes down, meets the halfway line. No, that one's a little bit too close to the eye. Bring this line down. Good. I can see I've still got a few of you out there tuned in. Whoops. Trying to get my mouse. Hang on. Where's my canvas gone? Here you are. Keep those pencils light. You heard what the man said. So now, here comes the tricky part. Just wide of the nose, give me a marker. There and there. And a second, I've got a comment here. Someone's lurking. Hey, yo. That was Pops, the producer emeritus of the Madness Entertainment Group. I better be on my best behavior. The boss is watching. So now we've got this slope on the nose, right? Give me a gradient here and a gradient here. And you can see the distance that we're gauging here. Remember, this is what you call sketching. We're gauging distances. And you're following me. This is Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. As my computer saves its time lapse. God damn. My poor Mac is struggling. All right, good. And give me an arc that side and an arc this side. Black Panther, in his original incarnation for the 1960s, his mask was pretty just blank. This is more of a Hollywood aspect to his costume. And I'm quite old school in general when it comes to my character design preferences. But I do find this mask quite interesting. Now, on that halfway line, join up those two lines that we've done previously. They give me a gradient. These are all double tram lines. Nice. And now we put in the bottom of that line and the bottom of this line. And that should be, that's it for that pattern. Now let's go for the one around the jaws. This one's very interesting. I want you to come in to the top of the bottom square. These are the bottom squares here. And as normal, try to find the center between, I always talk about the center of something. And I want you to come just in towards the center and give me a slight marker like this. Same here. Good. Then imagine this line carried on like that. Imagine that. And give yourself a marker there and there. Good. Now come down to the lower jaws and just below the bottom rectangles here, in here, give me another marker here. Got that? Good. Now, just inside of this first marker we did, give me the double tram line marker here. This is going to give us a destination now. From this bottom, we're going to need to come up to just above this bottom square here from that marker. And we can carry this through to this line here. These markers helped us with this first line. I think that line is a little bit far in, so I'm going to move that over slightly. Good. Here's my marker. And what we need now from this is, remember the marker we put here before? Join that to that. Good. Now give us a short horizontal here, like the one under the eyes. Give me a short horizontal. And then just above that halfway line, give me a gentle curve coming down to this line. There. And then we join up here. Keep it gentle. Keep it gentle. And here's an interesting part. Now we're going to bring a tram line underneath. Bring it underneath. Same on this side. Yeah, good. And we got a marker for the other tram line already down here. Bring that down. And then this is a different part of the pattern. Can you see it gets a bit thick there? Now whoops, sorry, I didn't bring this one down far enough. I didn't check the symmetry, boy. There. Yes. Sorry. Look at that. What a read. What a numbskull. I joined at the wrong part of the line. I'm not even following my own guides. That is terrible, Jerome Hinds. That's meant to come up here, isn't it? I wonder how many of you at home following me saw me make that mistake. I joined up the wrong marker. God damn. Call yourself an artist? God damn. Okay. But all's well that ends well. There, we got the pattern at the side of the face now. Okay, he's coming along nicely. And now, the top pattern on the head is not the easiest. So let's go for the easiest part first. Right dead center, below the bottom rectangles, give me a marker and bring down a line. And I'm making this line, to make it too thick, I've made it quite pronounced. There, good. So very slowly, let's take this pattern above the eyes. It's quite complex. Now treat it like an extension of the eye. Give me a curve that comes out from the eye to just above that rectangle quarter line. There. So same on the other side. Give yourself a marker and think of that as an extension of the eye. Bring this line up to about there. Good. Now come in to the inner eye about that distance and give me a little marker that's slightly sloping like this. And what we want from this now is give me a double tram line just inside the first arc that you made. And just below, not too long, sorry, I made that a bit long. Just below, we want to make it just below and just inside of the marker, give yourself another marker here, and that's going to join there. And same here, just inside. Good. And this spike, we want this spike to come down here to just above that line. And now remember we had this marker over here that we made? Bring this over to join there. I quite like this part of the face mask pattern. But I'm not sure when this was introduced. I'm saying it's a Hollywood part. Maybe it was introduced into the comic as well, but I have to be honest, I've not really read a lot of Marvel comics over the last 20 years or so. I'm too much of an old school. Good. Now here, in the second squares, either side of the halfway mark, halfway vertical, I want you to come almost halfway between this top rectangle, about there, and give me a couple of markers like that. And I need you to then put a marker just above the nose pattern there, and give me a couple of verticals there. Good. And give me another vertical on the inside. Another vertical here. And then join them up. Make sure they stay above the nose piece. Good. Now here comes the tricky part. Just inside of that one, give me another marker here and another marker there. And this one, give me a slight slope going towards that one, the ones that we just did. Double tram line, of course, but not as low. It cannot be as low as the bottom of this one. It stops about here. Then this changes direction and it goes towards the eye there. Stoop over, goes towards the eye, bend it about here. Bend it like Beckham. There, that's that inner pattern. Now as it comes up, they say this part is quite complex. What's the best way to describe this? What I want you to do is, we take the top line, about 1/3 of the way along, it needs to cross this line. Give me a slope going over here. Give me a slope going over there. And practice drawing in stereo. What I mean is when you do something one side, do the same the other side. Bring this line over here. We're going to build this up gradually because it is a little bit complex. Good, we got that. Now start to gently curve and come up above the bottom of this divisional square. Come up to about this height, just above that line. Keep it almost vertical, but slightly sloping. Give me a curve that comes up like that. Give me the tram line. I'm not giving you exact distances here. I'm hoping you're looking at what I'm doing and you're gauging your distances as well. I'm giving you some rough markers. Then as it comes up above, stop about halfway here. We've got another trajectory to check now. It's going to curve in. So I want it to come in there. I'm going to come in here. Now look at that distance. I'm not being symmetrical. Hang on. I need to slightly adjust this one. My slope there's a little bit off, I think. Yeah, I think I went off slightly there. Not quite as gentle as I could have been. All right. Yeah. Okay, good. And as I said, keep those pencils light. so we can adjust our sketching at any time. Good, so as we come in, and we want the line, the top of the line, to kind of follow the shape of the skull at that point. Good. And splaying away from that, you could say, give me a line underneath. Okay, come up to just underneath this pattern here, there and there. Good. You can see what I'm doing here clearly. And here, give me a slight over curve coming in here. Just change tool by mistake. And then there, gauge your distance. Give me an over curve here. So we bring this line up, so our tram line can hug the other one. Bring that over. And now we can almost follow the trajectory of the other one we've got. Let this one curve around the back, but slightly wider. So it's what I call like a splaying effect. There, and now we come over the other side and we join this up gently. They said this is a red excursion in symmetrical drawing. Now, I believe that every artist has an artistic footprint, and something that I'm guilty of, which I found a lot of other artists doing the same thing, is I tend to draw things on the left side of my images smaller. And I can see that the right side of this head is slightly smaller than my left side. Good, so we bring this up. And it actually comes up, then it turns around and goes towards the top of the head. It carries over to the back of the mask, actually. Good. And of course, the tram line. We're taking a little bit of depth of field in there. Let that line get a bit thinner. Good. That is pretty much our construction of Black Panther's head. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to put in a bit of shading. Right, we're going to put in a bit of shading. But before we do that, I want to run a trailer, because next month I'm launching an art book, which should be a load of fun. And have a look at this. Let me just pause my music. And hopefully I can win your support next month, launching on, well, you watch the trailer and see what's going on.
Paying tribute and great homage to the United States of America on its esteemed 250th birthday comes How to Draw Characters from the Thunder Zone Activity Book, a 188-page activity book that launches on July 4th, 2026. Written and illustrated by Jerome Judge Hinds, president of the Association of Comic Artists Singapore. Comes the ultimate tribute to the birthplace that brought to the world the splendor of superheroes and comic books. Jerome is a creator and senior editor at USA-based Thunder Zone Comics, and in the book, he shares with you the knowledge and methodologies of his work from over the past 8 years, all neatly wrapped up in a 10-chapter step-by-step tutorial. He covers full-length character construction, studies in hands and feet, secrets in foreshortening with props and weapons wielding, plus penciling techniques, inking, digital coloring, and even comic book cover layouts. It's all here and available in both soft or hardcover. And if you really can't wait to get your hands on the physical thing, there's always the digital guidebook edition available for pre-order now. How to Draw Characters from the Thunder Zone Activity Book, with Jerome Judge Hinds launching Independence Day 2026. And available now for digital pre-orders, exclusively from Amazon.com.
So you saw that and you heard that. So indeed, in that book, I use something called a skeletal method of construction, which we only really did here on the teeth on the necklace. Here we're using the grid methodology. So now we're going to do something called spotting. We're going to put some shading in. And again, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to make our shading symmetrical. So now it's a bit of rendering we're doing here, yeah? So first thing is, let's put some shading into the ears. Now this is called rendering. And when you render, try to keep your pencil all in one diagonal action. So I'm about 30 to 20 degrees, sloping upwards, left to right. Now, when you draw a comic, if you have a lot of large areas of black, what you can do to save time, you're working with an inker, you can put an X, and that inker will know that that area is to be totally covered in black. And I'm not sure how we're doing for time. It would be nice to ink this, but we might not have enough time. Just reshaping my ear. So let's come down to the mask. Let's put a highlight on the top of the head, shall we? So here, come in, give me a curve that comes out of that top pattern. Curves around like this, and the same on this side. Of course, this doesn't have to be exactly symmetrical. We're just assuming the light source is coming from above. It's pretty aerial. And something that I touch on in the book I just showed you is light sourcing. As I often say to people, if you, okay, give me a line under here. The Charlotte's gonna come here, yeah? If you can draw and stay true to a basic light source, your drawing will always have a certain amount of quality to it. Light sourcing, well, I'll tell you what it extends to. If you're into art, you may have heard the term before that shapes are the most important thing, which is very true. The number one thing in drawing, I agree, is shapes. So as you see as I render here, when I get to the edge, I might put in a slightly different direction to help me cut in. So when I come in like that, I meet that bottom part a bit easier, just in case you're wondering. Yeah, so as I was saying, shapes are the most important thing. And lighting is just an aspect of shapes. When you think about it, the only reason why we can understand shadows is because of where the light falls on an object. Without that, like, I don't know if you've ever seen a very, very, very illuminated room, but it's literally white. If there's a table in that room, you can't really see it, because if the light is everywhere, no shadows can be casted. So your lighting is an extension of your understanding of shapes. Very interesting. Of course, you can draw something without a light source and it still be accurate. But if you add lighting, the chances are the drawing will be to some degree more dynamic. My favorite artist of all time, a gentleman who's no longer with us, named Gil Kane. If you look at his early drawings, he didn't really work with a light source. Needless to say, his shapes and patterns were absolutely first class. You know, I mean, his drawing was phenomenal. So did he suffer for not drawing with a light source? Not really. But when he started to introduce light sources to his drawing, from what was literal perfection before, just became even better. So now, where does this piece of shadow end? Give me a line down the side of the noses here and bring the shadow down here. Bring it on, man. Bring it down. See, I'm still keeping my penciling 30 degrees, left to right. And it edges here. I like this piece here. It's very, another great artist that I like is a guy named Jack Kirby. Well, he's called Jack King Kirby. He's known as the king of comics, superhero comics. And he had lots of these sort of patterns going on. And in this, what I would call quite modern take on Black Panther, I think they're kind of paying homage to Jack Kirby with the way that shadow is often depicted with some of these more modern drawings of Black Panther. Now here, I'm slightly changing the direction of my rendering because it's a thin area. As I mentioned before, that's for cutting in, you call that. There, we come down here. Good. So in here it's going to be in the darkness. In the darkness. Spotting is quite tedious. It does take a lot of time. But I want your drawings, if you're drawing along with me at home, I want you to draw something that if you show someone, the immediate response would be, that's nice. And sometimes rendering for blacks or spotting can bring out an image quite a lot. There. And as I mentioned, try to keep it in one direction. The reason why I tell people to keep their pencil in one direction is that overall it has a nicer appearance. And let's not forget, comic art, as wonderful as it is related to that pesky term, commercial. Yes. It would be wonderful if you didn't have to make money from art sometimes. But you've got to pay the bills. And if you're at a Comic Con and you're selling some of your original pencils, the nicer your pencils are, the more likely someone is going to buy them. So what we're discussing here is connected to presentation, and it does help. There are some people whose penciling techniques are just nice. There are some people, true story, I've got a new student this week. He's only 11 years old. Only 11. But there's something about the way he applies his pencil. You can see this kid has got it. It's quite magical. He had his first trial class this week. And he was on it, man. He is good. So he's joining one of my classes out here from July. And he's just born with that X factor. Hard to actually explain. The way he applies, just his early lesson, telling him about sketching, keeping those pencils light, and rendering in one direction, that kind of stuff. Just from that first initial class. Sorry, we didn't get to any rendering. We just got to drawing shapes and his gauging of distances, etc. But the way he applied his pencil, the way he kept his pencil light, and then rendered, as I told him to make his pencils darker. He's got a natural gift. Moving on to the other subject of inking, actually, quite funny. I've come across quite a few really good pencilers, good artists that can't ink. Okay, I'm assuming that everyone watching this is a comic book person. So when I start talking about things like inking, I'm assuming that you know what I'm talking about. I have discovered that a few people watch these streams and they're very, very new to this whole art form. So I'll explain a bit about inking. Generally, when you draw a comic, when a person sketches the comic or pencils the comic, well, it's precisely that. It's in pencils, which is in grayscale. And many, many years ago, a printing press would struggle with grays and pencils. So then it was the job of another artist to come along and render those pencils in perfect black and white. Okay, while I'm talking, just follow what I'm doing. Yeah. Give me a line under the eyes here. It's going to be the edge of the blacks, yeah? Yeah, so I was saying, it was the job of an inker to make the pencils perfectly black and white. And it's a very, very important job. It's a discipline of it in itself. And what happened was, a lot of artists were discovered that they couldn't actually ink. If they would try inking, but they just weren't cut out for it. And yeah, I find this to be true. One of my favorite artists, a gentleman by the name of Jim Starlin. Jim Starlin, absolute genius, right? But I've seen some books that he's inked, and his inking is very, very dodgy. He's got no chance of hearing this show, I don't think. But if he does, I'm sure he won't take offense. Because the first person to know when you're falling short is an artist. And poor Jim, fantastic writer, great colorist. Some of the old, also like the old Captain Marvel comics. Again, Captain Marvel used to be a guy. And Jim Starlin did some great work on the concept back in the day. Okay, so hopefully you're following as I do the spotting. And yeah, when Jim Starlin was working on Captain Marvel, he was also credited as the colorist. And he has a very good sense of color. It makes me wonder, actually. Now, I'm biased. Okay, I like comic books. I'm a comic book kind of guy. And hang on. Close this path in here. Don't know why I drew that so high. Right, so now we're going to fill in the blacks to this big area of black here, yeah? So just follow me. Just follow me. I'm going to keep talking about some incidentals that I find interesting. And back in the day, Jim Starlin was credited with coloring Captain Marvel, which you could tell he had his own style of imagery. He's what I call a very cosmic creator. You know, a lot of his stuff is set in outer space. And I read an interview once where he was talking, and he actually said he set things in space because he actually doesn't like drawing cities. He doesn't really like buildings and cars. So I thought, fair enough. Amazing. Amazing. And, but Jim, Mr. Starlin did something that I can't forgive him. He killed Captain Marvel. again, if you're quite young and you're watching this, the only Captain Marvel you would be aware of is the one from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The one played by Brie Larson, the actress. That's a, relatively speaking, that's a new phenomenon, the female Captain Marvel. Yeah, Captain Marvel used to be a guy, Marvel, from the Kree Empire. And Jim Starlin had a marvelous run on this character back in the 1970s. When I got those comics, I could say Mr. Starlin changed my life. The way how I approached art, comic art, this guy was just doing something that was phenomenal, man. Still stands up by today's standards. Brilliant. But I stopped collecting Marvel comics around very late 1970s, 1979, 1980. And I came back in the 1990s. I was attracted by a guy called Jim Lee, who is possibly the greatest comic artist, modern day comic artist. I say modern day, showing my age. But yeah, Jim Lee got me back into comics when he drew X-Men. I saw it in the newsstand. And that was in the 90s. But during my absence of the late 1970s, comics had changed quite a lot. They had become much darker. And I actually remember back in the late 1970s, one of the things that chased me away from comics, apart from like, you know, getting different interests, just going through a phase. And one thing that chased me away from Marvel Comics, because I ended the 1970s collecting DC comics, was I noticed Marvel Comics becoming increasingly dark. And of course, it was popular with a lot of readers, but I wasn't feeling it. Iron Man became an alcoholic, which I'm sure your serious comic collectors would tell you it's a stroke of genius and deserves rewards and all that. But I immediately, gut instinct, didn't like it. And I went away from Marvel Comics. A lot of similar things were happening around that time in Marvel. They were keeping it real, it would tell you. But it wasn't for me. But DC still had more of a superhero spirit, you can call it. You know, and the Legion of Superheroes, man. Absolutely brilliant. And I finished off my older era of comic collecting being very much a DC guy. But anyway, in my absence, Jim Starlin decided to kill Captain Marvel. And when I came back and I found out that Marvel was dead, well, to this day, I'm not best pleased. Let's put it that way. Now, hang on. I'm busy here talking. There's a couple of comments here. Sorry, people. Who's in here? Oh, goodness, it's Kerry. Have you showed today, mister? Yes, I have. For those of you tuning in, Kerry is a regular here on the Madness Entertainment Group. And she's been scolding me that I'm not hard selling my book, you know. But for any of you that have been here for a while, you saw that I played the trailer earlier. How come you always sat in dark room? You know why? Because my room is too untidy. If I switch the light on, you're going to see the mess behind me. But I do promise to tidy up. Now, come on, Jerome, tell people what will be on paperback and hardback July 4th. Kerry, you're late to the party. I was doing some of that earlier. I'll run the trailer again then, Kerry, before the end of the show. So here, we're rendering. Okay, let's just render the ears. So yeah, so I was talking about Jim Starlin, and he killed Captain Marvel. And to this day, I've never forgiven him. And it's quite a shame, actually, because even what Marvel did with the character, the cinematic universe, I mean, in my opinion, Captain Marvel is one of the greatest characters ever created. If I give you the elevator pitch, I don't think you could actually identify it with what the cinematic universe the film is much more convoluted. So you miss the essence of what the character was, right? So here's the elevator pitch. I'm coming back to you in a second, Kerry. Right. Okay, here's the elevator pitch for Captain Marvel, the original Marvel Captain Marvel. An emissary or a soldier from a superior alien nation is sent to Earth on a reconnaissance mission because his superior rulers are destined to come to Earth and take over our civilization. But on getting to know people from Earth, Officer Marvel defects, and from being the Earth's persecutor becomes its greatest defender. That's basically what Captain Marvel was. He was sent to Earth to check us out, see what we were up to, and to warn his superiors, the Kree. If we got things like atomic bombs and all that, if they come in here, they've got to know what they're up against. But after he got here, and he disguised himself as a doctor, Dr. Walter Lawson, he decided, you know what? I'm going to protect these people. They don't deserve to be killed. And he became a traitor to his nation, to his people, and then decided to defend the Earth against the Kree. Now, I don't know what's the matter with Marvel, but why that wasn't a TV series, everybody should know. I mean, basically, it's the Superman concept, right? But the only difference is Krypton wasn't sending people here, wasn't sending Superman here to enslave us, or to help enslave us. It's just a tweak on the Superman concept, which I thought was the genius of Stan Lee. He had these ideas, very simple, but so effective. And Jim Starlin kind of extended the storyline. He sent him through a change. Captain Marvel became cosmically aware. I think it was the living planet Eon that helped him transform. And I remember as a kid, right? You're at school, right? And back in the old days, when you went to school, you couldn't read. But my brothers taught me how to read before I started school. So I remember my first day of school, the teacher was shocked. I remember the look on her face, Mrs. Ackland. She looks at me and says, "You can read." I didn't understand what she meant because I thought everyone could read. But no, man, I was the only kid in the class that could read, apparently. And in that same vein, some years later, I was about, 9 or 10 years old or something, I was reading the Captain Marvel comic, and Captain Marvel went through a massive change, which is called a metamorphosis. So I didn't know what that word meant. So I'm at school with my teacher, Mrs. Davis. I never forget her. She was Welsh, believe it or not. That's so stereotypical. A Welsh lady named Davis. So I asked her, "Mrs. Davis, what does metamorphosis mean?" And she says in that Welsh accent, "Why on earth are you asking me that, Jerry?" I remember that like yesterday, man. I said, "It's because, god damn, this is some brutal rendering here, man. I've got some big areas of black hair to fill in." I hope for those of you at home following, I hope you're taking the time to render nicely. God damn, how long have I got left? I still got 20 minutes. All right, yeah, I should be good for time to render this, to spot this black. I could cheat, but I'm not going to. I'm going to rough this out with you, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to stick with you. I'm on Kerry's back. Okay, I answered that. How come I'm always sat in a dark room? Yeah, because my room is untidy. Come on, Jerome, tell people what will be on paperback and hardback July 4th. Okay, I think I read that. Yes, I will. If you don't talk about it, how will people know you have something awesome out in the world? Well, you're absolutely right. But if I sit here talking about my book and not doing any drawing, there's not going to be any draw-along. Maybe I should spend more time talking about the book. So, okay, while I'm rendering, I'm going to talk about the book now, Kerry, right? I was just talking about influences from some of the Marvel greats like Gil Kane and Jim Starlin. So I'm going to tell you about the book. Okay, listen. I'll run the trailer, then I'll tell you about the book. Hang on. Here we go. We'll do all this rendering together for the end while I talk about the book. Multitask. Apparently men can't multitask. Maybe I'm living proof. So here we go. Here's the trailer for the book, and then I'm going to talk about the book afterwards. Here we go.
Paying tribute and great homage to the United States of America on its esteemed 250th birthday comes How to Draw Characters from the Thunder Zone Activity Book, a 188-page activity book that launches on July 4th, 2026. Written and illustrated by Jerome Judge Hinds, president of the Association of Comic Artists Singapore, comes the ultimate tribute to the birthplace that brought to the world the splendor of superheroes and comic books. Jerome is a creator and senior editor at USA-based Thunder Zone Comics, and in the book, he shares with you the knowledge and methodologies of his work from over the past 8 years, all neatly wrapped up in a 10-chapter step-by-step tutorial. He covers full-length character construction, studies in hands and feet, secrets in foreshortening with props and weapons wielding, plus penciling techniques, inking, digital coloring, and even comic book cover layouts. It's all here and available in both soft or hardcover. And if you really can't wait to get your hands on the physical thing, there's always the digital guidebook edition available for pre-order now. How to Draw Characters from the Thunder Zone Activity Book, with Jerome Judge Hinds launching Independence Day 2026. And available now for digital pre-orders, exclusively from Amazon.com.
Okay, so you saw that and you heard that. And something I'm working on, is my music playing? I can't hear it. Yes, it is there. And so the 4th of, look at that. Are you really a judge? I wish. I'd have to get a law degree for that. I'm just very judgmental, let's say that. That's what my wife says. That's why I'm a judge. Actually, I'll tell you how I got that name in a minute. But on the subject of the book, on July the 4th, which actually miraculously falls on a Saturday, it's still not 100% finalized, but I'm going to be streaming almost the entire day in conjunction with a sponsor. And I've been doing loads of live streams throughout the day here on Madness Entertainment Group, and perhaps on some other platforms as well. But it just can be loads of drawing exercises and different methodologies, as mentioned in the trailer, that I'll be exploring live. I'm going to be very tired that day. I'm trying to stream Eastern time from almost like from the morning right through to the evening, which is actually after my art class here in Singapore. So I'm going to be hard at it all day. But so as you would say, Kerry, I'll be working very hard, trying to get people to invest in how to draw comics from the how to draw characters from the Thunder Zone, which has been great fun. I'm compiling. It's already done. But I'm doing some last minute tweaks, some last minute edits. I got into hard copy proof last week, and I saw a few things that I think I can improve. So I'm just working on those final amendments. But there's already completed copies. The digital copy is already available for pre-order. And I was very surprised at how the hardback copy came out. It's really, really nice. I'm very, very pleased with the way it's come out. Yeah, Kerry points out. It says Judge in your trailer. Yeah, it's a nickname. Yeah, okay. Why am I known as Judge? Well, here it is. I've been known to be a bit opinionated. So I went to Barbados on holiday. I was born in the UK, but my mother and father were both born on the island of Barbados in the Caribbean. So I went there to visit my grandparents for the first time back in the very early 1980s. I never met my grandparents before. On my mum's side, this was. So while we were there, you know, me and the cousins are in heated discussions about anything. And I'm laying down the law, you know, opinionated young man. And my grandfather, he makes the joke, this young Jerry. He called me Jerry, not Jerome. This young Jerry is a bit of a judge. A bit judgmental. And I was telling this story. So then they started calling me Judge, right? And then I come to Singapore. I migrate to Singapore, right? So no one knows this. So I'm not known as Judge. And I tell the story to another artist from Indonesia, a great artist, in fact, called Tony Mastiono. I'm telling him this story, you know, just in passing. Next thing you know, right, he's calling me Judge. He just decided to call me it. And some other people heard him say it. They're kind of stuck in this part of the world as well. Bizarre. So I can't seem to escape it. I tried to get rid of it once because I'm not a judge. But then it grew on me. And I decided to put it back as a pen name. I wish I was a judge sometimes. Actually, no, I don't. That looks like a very difficult job. I'd just be the judge of things that I like or don't like. That reminds me of a record producer. I had a friend in UK doing a demo tape, and he was working with one of the greatest producers from UK. I can't remember his name, but he worked with Genesis. Genesis was the band back from the 80s. And this guy was their producer. And my friend did some impressive stuff, and it got to him, and the guy wanted to work with him. So they're in the studio, and you know, they're lining up the mixing desk for the final mix. And this guy comes in. I think his name was Jerome was the name of the producer. And he comes in and he wipes all of the levels. And my friend says to him, I was working on that. That's the idea I had in mind. And Jerome looks at my friend and he says, I know what I like and I like what I know. Never forget that. Absolutely brilliant. And I find that to be true in general of people who have quite strong opinions. Not that you're not open to suggestions, but if you don't like something, it's very hard to then accept it. Like something that I know I don't like, and it's very hard for me to accept at any level, are stories that involve different time continuums. Parallel universes can be interesting, but normally, if a writer is out of ideas, the first thing they will do is involve time travel. Because when you involve time travel, you are literally free to do anything you like. You don't need to have any canon in your story. You can change anything. And the same with parallel universes. You can break any of your own rules that you set, unless that universe is still relevant to your own universe. And that's how you know that a lot of modern or recent years comic books and even Marvel Universe, you can see that they're out of ideas. And there's me being a judge. God damn, this is some brutal rendering today. Oh yeah, I said I was going to talk about the book. Let's make sure. Oh yeah, still got a few of you watching, it looks like. Thanks for staying tuned to Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along. Indeed, I have a book coming out on July the 4th. I'll be streaming all day long. And in the book, it follows a basic framework of 4 steps for construction. I start with a skeleton. Then there's something called fleshing out, where you put the meat of the person onto the skeleton that you constructed. And from the fleshing out, you then put in the detail, which is the basics of the costume. And during the fleshing out stage, there's a few things that I like to include. One is trajectories. That's where you know in what direction different parts of the body is traveling in. There's that, and there's dimensions. You want to know where the front, side, top, or bottom of any aspect of your character might be. And the book follows this basic kind of procedure, and we go through lots of exercises of past drawings that I've had to do on behalf of Thunderzone Comics, which I've done quite a lot of work for over the past years. And in fact, last night we had a stream with Dan Sen from Thunderzone Comics. He's just launched a new book called Guides with Powers. And I was doing a live art demo. As we launched that, we had a countdown clock. And immediately, quite a few pages came in, which was awesome. Awesome stuff. How are we doing for time? 7 minutes left. Okay. We're just going to add a bit of rendering to the neck area and those teeth. And we should be there for constructing Black Panther. Now, the nature of Black Panther is when he is Black Panther. So I could have skipped this step of the rendering. But without this, it's not Black Panther, you know what I mean? And I also wanted to make sure the idea of rendering in one direction. Very important. Now, ironically, you can see here, as I got into the bottom of my sketch, up here, I was left to right, slanting upwards. Here, I've gone and changed direction. It's right to left. But in this area, it's still all relative. I'm going to do a bit of cutting in there to make it easier. I do the horizontals here. Just at the edge only. There. And in fact, normally when I do a sketch, I do something called a render, where you go over your line work with a definitive pencil line. And we didn't do that today. We just went straight to the spot render. because it's very much still a sketching exercise, you could say. There. Under the chin. There. All in one direction. And in my book, I talk about rendering. We go through hatching. Now, this drawing has no hatching, right? We're doing the straight spotting. And in the book, I demonstrate how from spotting like this, you can opt to hatch or not hatch. It's all a personal preference. So I try to explore different styles of rendering, different line work. Because you never know, there might be something within a different style that you might prefer. So I try to introduce the reader to different disciplines, if you like. Now we can switch off our construction and our skeleton. Actually, look at that. I actually drew that detail on the wrong layer. Now let's just put in a bit. Let's put in a bit of shading on the teeth. The teeth are metal. So give a wiggly line that's varied in thickness. And that would give us a feeling of metallic. And we go through this again in the book also, where textures on different fabrics, we touch on that a bit, and of course metal. So there we are. With 4 minutes left, there's T'Challa, Black Panther. Now, how many weeks do we have left in the month of June? Let me check my calendar. We've only got one Sunday left. Oh man, that's because I missed last week, didn't I? So next week, we'll be doing Khazar and Zabu. And if we have time, we'll also be drawing Brother Voodoo. Well, there's Black Panther from this week. And I'm going to play the trailer again for the book. And thank you so much for tuning in. I can see a few of you there watching. And please feel free to go over to Facebook, the Madness Entertainment Group, and send us any questions you may have. I'm Kerry, if you're still there. Thank you so much for your support and scolding. My name is Jerome Hinds. I'm going to run the trailer and the end credits. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been great fun. Let me put Black Panther. You don't want to see me. Let me put him back center. This was indeed very good fun to draw. And in fact, I've done a time lapse of this. So you can see here. See, here's the time lapse. Just a quick review. Remember, we started with a grid. We divided it up into 8 and then into 16. Then the first thing we did was get in the shape of the face. Yeah, shapes rule, boy. Shapes rule. Then we put in the ears. Then remember I mentioned the ears are quite high and he's not exactly Superman, so the neck is not the thickest. But he got a firm neck, he's a superhero after all. Then constructing the teeth, we did it with a skeleton, right? We put in those lines. I can't zoom in any more than this. This is just a quick preview. And then we went for that inner detail. I'll speed this up slightly. There, that pattern was a bit complex, right? Then we did the spotting to really bring it to life. As I mentioned, shapes rule, but lighting is what gives everything true form. I'm going to export that. So back here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to play the trailer and I'll see you back here again. Actually, we've also got Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along is this show. Late on a Friday night, we've got Late Night Art Attack. And I'm going to run the trailer for what we did just this morning. I was here doing that. So I'm going to show you what we did on Late Night Art Attack. then the book trailer, then the end credits. So hopefully I'll see you back here, same time, same place next week. Meanwhile, enjoy these various trailers of what we've got happening here on the Madness Entertainment Group. My name is Jerome Judge Hinds. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace.
Previously on Late Night Art Attack.
Tribute and great homage to the United States of America on its esteemed 250th birthday comes How to Draw Characters from the Thunder Zone Activity Book, a 188-page activity book that launches on July 4th, 2026. Written and illustrated by Jerome Judge Hinds, President of the Association of Comic Artists Singapore, comes the ultimate tribute to the birthplace that brought to the world the splendor of superheroes and comic books. Jerome is a creator and senior editor at USA-based Thunder Zone Comics, and in the book, he shares with you the knowledge and methodologies of his work from over the past 8 years, all neatly wrapped up in a 10-chapter step-by-step tutorial. He covers full-length character construction, studies in hands and feet, secrets in foreshortening with props and weapons wielding, plus penciling techniques, inking, digital coloring, and even comic book cover layouts. It's all here and available in both soft or hardcover. And if you really can't wait to get your hands on the physical thing, there's always the digital guidebook edition available for pre-order now. How to Draw Characters from the Thunder Zone Activity Book, with Jerome Judge Hinds launching Independence Day 2026. And available now for digital pre-orders, exclusively from Amazon.com.
Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along welcomes you to Jungle June. That's right. Join Jerome Hinds here on the Madness Entertainment Group for a month of tutorials on how to draw some of the best-known heroes from the land of rainforest. Black Panther, Shana the She-Devil, Khazar, and Zabu. And of course, the King of the Jungle, Tarzan. That's Jungle June with Jerome Hinds on Supa-Saturdays Draw-Along.
If you missed the live viewing of any Meg production, you can find all our content on Roku or as a member of this channel. Madness Entertainment Group.